So, what we got here is 3 sets of points written in matrix form, so let's not let that confuse ourselves. That is -1, comma 2, so I graph that, and there it is for the A. 4, comma -3, there's B. And 3, comma 5, and there's C. The first thing we want to do is to reflect this across the y-axis. Typically that is written with an R sub y, reflecting it across the y-axis. To do this, our rule is -x, comma y, which means that you will keep the numbers in the same order. Just multiply the first one by a -1. So -1 times a -1 is 1. 4 times a -1. 3 times a -1. Leaving the second set of numbers the same. And that should reflect that triangle across the y-axis. So I changed colors to red so that we can see this. Let's see. 1, comma 2 is A. -4, comma -3 is B. -3, comma 5 is our new C. So that's where the primes come in. You write A prime, signifying you took A and reflected it over the y-axis, B prime, and C prime. Remember that this is your y-axis, so if you're reflecting it over, you're folding it over or a mirror image over. So that looks correct. So you could graph it and double check your answer. All right, so we have the same points, we have the same triangle, but this time we're going to do a translation of a horizontal component of -3 and a vertical component of 2. So that's the one that just moves it left and right and up and down. So we are going to subtract 3 from our x coordinates. So -1 minus 3. Don't be a mathematical hero. Grab a calculator and double check that answer if you need to. 4 minus 3, 3 minus 3. Then we want to do a vertical translation up 2. So we will take the y values and add 2 to them. 2 plus 2 is 4. -3 plus 2. And 5 plus 2. So this should have moved the triangle to the left 3 and up 2. So -4, let me do a different color. -4, 4. To the left 3, up 2, A prime. 1, -1. Left 3, up 2, yep, B prime. C is 0, 7. So I might not be able to, I'll just squeeze it up there. There you go. C prime. So it is the exact same triangle. We are just moving it to the left and up. T for translation. All right, so we have the same triangle. I already graphed it there. This time we are going to reflect it across the y equals x line. Remember that the y equals x line is where y and x are the same thing. So it goes through 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, -1, -1, and so on. So we are reflecting it over this red line. We're putting a mirror at the red line and reflecting it. All right, the rule for the reflection over the y equals x line is y, comma, x. Let me try that again. Whoop. Y, comma, x. There we go. So what this rule is telling me is that I am switching the order. Instead of x comma y, I'm getting y comma x. So I'm switching the order, but I am not multiplying anything by a -1. So what was in the bottom will now be in the top. So 2, -3, 5. And what was on the top will now be in the bottom. -1, 4, 3. And when graphed, this should reflect it over the red line. 2, -1 is A prime. So you can see it goes over the red line. -3, 4 is B prime. And 5, 3 is C prime. We talked a little bit yesterday about drawing our perpendiculars with the red lines and reflecting it over it. Let me see, I'm out of colors, but you can see C prime is here, same distance away, or C is there, same distance away is C prime. So the blue is the triangle that is reflected over the y equals x line. Okay. Same triangle, we're rotating it now 180 degrees. It's a half a turn, so it doesn't matter if you go clockwise or counterclockwise. 180 degrees is the same thing. The rule for that is -x, comma, -y, which means x, comma, y, we leave it in the same order than it was originally, and we just multiply everything by a -1. So, -1 times a -1, 4 times a -1, 3 times a -1, 2 times a -1, -3 times a -1, and 5 times a -1. Graph that, it should be spinning the paper 180 degrees. If you spin the paper half a turn, where would this triangle be? That's the question. 1, -2, -4, 3, and -3, -5. A prime, B prime, C prime. So if you put your pencil at the origin and spun the paper half a turn, that's where your triangle would end up. Here we go, same triangle, graphed already. We're going to do a rotation of 90 degrees counterclockwise. That, of course, is 90 degrees counterclockwise, is headed in that direction, towards the left. And that would be the same thing as 270 degrees clockwise, just to let you know. Our rule for 90 degrees counterclockwise is -y, comma, -x. What this is telling me is that I will switch the order and I will multiply the original second number by a -1. So the top numbers will remain the same. They're just going to go to the bottom. So -1, 4, 3. The bottom numbers will be multiplied by a -1 and go to the top. So -2, 3, -5. At this point, this should take the paper, the triangle, you put your finger at the origin, spin it a quarter of a turn, and this is what the triangle should look like. So -2, -1 is A prime, 3, 4 is B prime, and -5, 3 is C prime. So if you had put your finger at the origin and spun it a quarter of a turn, this is what it should look like.